The sudden and very tragic death sending shockwaves across the country. Actor Chadwick Boseman died at the age of 43 following a private 4-year battle with colon cancer.
Hollywood may be full of glitz and glamour, but behind the scenes, it's also a place of heartbreak, especially when it comes to the sudden loss of some of its brightest black stars. From shocking overdoses and tragic accidents to quiet battles no one saw coming, here are 22 black actor deaths that still haunt Hollywood, starting with Tupac Shakur. Tupac Shakur was way more than just a rapper. He was becoming a serious movie star, too. Born in New York in 1971, Tupac had this magnetic energy that made him perfect for both music and acting. He showed up in films like Juice, Poetic Justice with Janet Jackson, and Above the Rim. The guy was only 25 when everything changed on September 7, 1996. Tupac was in Las Vegas with Death Row Records boss Suge Knight, riding in a BMW after watching a Mike Tyson fight. They were stopped at a red light on East Flamingo Road when another car pulled up beside them. Someone opened fire, hitting Tupac multiple times in the chest, arm, and thigh. Suge Knight got grazed by a bullet fragment but kept driving. Tupac was rushed to University Medical Center where he fought for his life for 6 days before passing away on September 13th. The shooting happened right in busy traffic, but somehow nobody saw the shooter clearly enough to help solve the case. Some folks think it was connected to the East Coast-West Coast rap rivalry that was heating up at the time. Others point to the fight Tupac and his crew had with Orlando Anderson at the MGM Grand earlier that same night. The case is still officially unsolved today, which just adds to the mystery around one of hip-hop's biggest stars. 2. The Notorious B.I.G. The Notorious B.I.G., whose real name was Christopher Wallace, was Tupac's rival, but also incredibly talented in his own right. Born in Brooklyn in 1972, Biggie was just getting started in movies when his life was cut short. He appeared in the film Rhyme and Reason and was working on more acting projects. The big guy with the smooth flow was only 24 when he was killed on March 9, 1997. Biggie was in Los Angeles for a party thrown by Vibe magazine and Quest Records. He was leaving the party at the Peterson Automotive Museum in a GMC Suburban when a dark Chevrolet Impala SS pulled up next to his car at a red light. The driver of the Impala rolled down his window and fired multiple shots into Biggie's vehicle. The rapper was hit 4 times and was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but doctors couldn't save him. He was pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. Just like with Tupac, the case remains unsolved despite lots of investigation and theories. The timing was especially weird because Biggie had been trying to calm down the East Coast-West Coast beef that many people blamed for Tupac's death just 6 months earlier. Some people think his murder was retaliation for Tupac's killing, while others believe it was connected to corrupt cops or music industry drama. 3. Aaliyah. Aaliyah was this incredibly talented singer and actress who was just hitting her stride when tragedy struck. Born Aaliyah Dana Houghton in Brooklyn in 1979, she moved to Detroit as a kid and started performing young. Her acting career was taking off with roles in Romeo Must Die with Jet Li and Queen of the Damned. She was only 22 when she died in a plane crash on August 25, 2001. Aaliyah and her team had been filming a music video for the song Rock the Boat in the Bahamas. They were supposed to fly back to Florida on a small twin-engine Cessna 402B. The plane was overloaded with equipment and people. It was carrying 9 people when it was only certified for 8. The pilot, Luis Morales III, wasn't even supposed to be flying that day and had traces of cocaine and alcohol in his system. Shortly after takeoff from Marsh Harbor Airport, the plane crashed just 200 feet from the runway. Everyone on board died instantly. Investigators found that the plane was about 700 pounds over its maximum weight limit. Aaliyah had actually been nervous about the small plane and had taken a sleeping pill before the flight. Her death shocked everyone because she was so young and had so much more to give to both music and movies. 4. Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman became a superhero to millions of kids around the world, but he was fighting his own battle that nobody knew about. Born in South Carolina in 1976, Chadwick studied directing at Howard University and started acting in TV shows and movies. He played baseball legend Jackie Robinson in 42, musician James Brown in Get On Up, and Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall in Marshall. But it was his role as King T'Challa in Black Panther that made him a global superstar. What nobody knew was that Chadwick had been diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer back in 2016, right around the time he was cast as the Black Panther. He kept his illness completely private while filming multiple Marvel movies, including Captain America, Civil War, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. He was getting chemotherapy and surgery between takes, but never let it show. The cancer progressed to stage 4, and Chadwick died at his home in Los Angeles on August 28, 2020, at age 43. His family released a statement saying he had been battling the disease for 4 years with true fighter spirit. His death was such a shock because he had seemed healthy and strong in all his recent movie appearances. The timing was especially sad because Black Panther had meant so much to black communities worldwide. 5. Bernie Mac. Bernie Mac was one of the funniest guys in Hollywood and could make anyone laugh with his loud, energetic style. Born Bernard Jeffrey McCullough in Chicago in 1957, Bernie grew up on the South Side and started doing stand-up comedy as a young man. He became famous as part of the original Kings of Comedy with Steve Harvey, D.L. Hewley, and Cedric the Entertainer. Bernie starred in his own TV show, The Bernie Mac Show, and appeared in movies like Friday, The Players Club, Life, Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, Transformers, and Soul Men. He was known for his "America, I Ain't Scared of You" catchphrase and his wild stories about raising his sister's kids. Bernie had been dealing with sarcoidosis, which is a disease that causes inflammation in different parts of the body, especially the lungs. In August 2008, he went to Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago because he was having trouble breathing. What started as pneumonia got worse because of his sarcoidosis. The inflammation in his lungs made it hard for his body to fight off the infection. Bernie died on August 9, 2008, at age 50, from complications related to pneumonia. His death surprised a lot of people because he seemed to be doing well and was still working on movies. His loud, larger-than-life personality made it hard to believe that someone so full of energy was gone. 6. Michael Kenneth Williams. Michael Kenneth Williams was one of those actors who could play tough guys and sensitive characters with equal skill. Born in Brooklyn in 1966, Michael got his start as a dancer and backup performer for artists like George Michael and Madonna. He's best known for playing Omar Little on The Wire, a stick-up man who robbed drug dealers in Baltimore. Michael also appeared in movies like 12 Years a Slave, The Night of, When They See Us, and Lovecraft Country. He was found dead in his Brooklyn apartment on September 6, 2021, at age 54. The medical examiner determined that he had accidentally overdosed on fentanyl-laced heroin. Michael had been open about his struggles with drug addiction over the years, talking about how playing Omar had sometimes triggered his own demons. He had been sober for periods, but had relapsed. Friends and family said he had been doing well recently and was working on new projects. His death was part of a bigger crisis with fentanyl, which is much stronger than regular heroin and has been causing overdose deaths to skyrocket. Michael's nephew found him in the living room of his Williamsburg apartment. The loss hit the entertainment industry hard because Michael was known as a kind, generous person who mentored young actors and was passionate about helping his community. 7. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston was called the Voice for good reason. She had one of the most powerful and beautiful singing voices ever recorded. Born in Newark, New Jersey in 1963, Whitney grew up in a musical family and started singing in church as a child. She became a global superstar with hits like I Want to Dance with Somebody, I Will Always Love You, and Greatest Love of All. Whitney also acted in movies like The Bodyguard, Waiting to Exhale, and The Preacher's Wife. Unfortunately, she struggled with drug addiction for many years, which affected both her voice and her career. On February 11, 2012, Whitney was found dead in the bathtub of her room at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills. She was 48 years old and had been in town for Clive Davis's pre-Grammy party. The medical examiner found that Whitney had drowned, but cocaine use and heart disease were contributing factors. There were also traces of other drugs in her system, including marijuana, Xanax, and Benadryl. Investigators think she probably lost consciousness while in the tub because of the drugs and then drowned. Hotel staff found her underwater when they went to check on her after she missed checkout time. Whitney's death was especially tragic because she had been trying to make a comeback and had seemed more stable in recent months. Her struggle with addiction had been very public, and many people had hoped she would be able to overcome it completely. 8. Bobby Christina Brown. Bobby Christina Brown was Whitney Houston's daughter, and her death was heartbreakingly similar to her mother's. Born in 1993, Bobby Christina grew up in the spotlight as the child of Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown. She appeared on reality TV shows with her parents and was trying to follow in their footsteps in the entertainment industry. She was only 22 when she was found unresponsive in a bathtub at her home in Roswell, Georgia, on January 31, 2015. Her boyfriend, Nick Gordon, found her face down in the water and called 911. Bobby Christina was rushed to the hospital and put on life support, but she remained in a coma for nearly 6 months. She was moved to different care facilities as her family hoped she would recover, but she never regained consciousness. She died on July 26, 2015, at a hospice care facility in Duluth, Georgia. The medical examiner found that she had drowned, similar to her mother, and that drug intoxication was a contributing factor. Marijuana and alcohol were found in her system, along with prescription and over-the-counter drugs. The similarities between her death and Whitney's death just 3 years earlier were eerie and heartbreaking. Bobby Christina's family believed that Nick Gordon was responsible for her death, and they filed a wrongful death lawsuit against him. Gordon was later found legally responsible in civil court and ordered to pay millions in damages, though he always denied any wrongdoing. 9. Nate Dogg. Nate Dogg had one of the smoothest voices in hip-hop and was featured on countless hit songs as a guest vocalist. Born Nathaniel Dwayne Hale in Long Beach, California in 1969, he grew up with his cousins Snoop Dogg and Daz Dillinger. Nate Dogg was a key part of the West Coast hip-hop sound in the 1990s and 2000s, singing hooks on songs like Regulate with Warren G, The Next Episode with Dr. Dre, and 21 Questions with 50 Cent. He also did some acting, appearing in movies and TV shows. Nate Dogg's health problems started around 2007 when he suffered his first stroke. The stroke affected his speech and movement, but he kept trying to make music and perform. He had a second stroke in 2008 that was more serious and required extensive rehabilitation. Despite his health issues, Nate Dogg was working on new music and trying to get back to his career. On March 15, 2011, he died at age 41 from complications related to his multiple strokes. The strokes had caused ongoing problems with his brain and cardiovascular system that eventually became too much for his body to handle. 10. Heavy D. Heavy D was a rapper and actor who helped bring a more positive, fun-loving image to hip-hop during its early years. Born Dwight Arrington Myers in Jamaica in 1967, he moved to Mount Vernon, New York, as a child. Heavy D formed the group Heavy D and the Boys and had hits like Now That We Found Love and Somebody for Me. He was known for his dancing skills and upbeat personality, which made him popular on TV shows and in movies. Heavy D appeared in films like Life, Cider House Rules, and Step Up, and he had recurring roles on TV shows including Boston Public and The Tracy Morgan Show. He also worked behind the scenes as a producer and talent scout for other artists. On November 8, 2011, Heavy D was shopping at the Beverly Hills Mall when he started having trouble breathing. He made it back to his condo, but collapsed in the stairway of his building. Paramedics rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but he died later that day at age 44. The medical examiner found that Heavy D had died from a pulmonary embolism, which is when a blood clot blocks an artery in the lungs. He also had deep vein thrombosis, which means he had blood clots in his legs that traveled to his lungs. The condition can be caused by sitting for long periods, like during long flights, or by other health factors. Heavy D had recently returned from performing in Cardiff, Wales, so the long flight may have contributed to his condition. His death was sudden and unexpected because he had seemed healthy and was still actively performing and making music. 11. Paul Robeson, Jr. Paul Jr. was the son of the legendary Paul Robeson, and he carried on his father's legacy as an activist and writer. Born in 1927, Paul Jr. grew up watching his famous dad perform on stage and in movies like The Emperor Jones and Showboat. He became a computer engineer, but also wrote books and appeared in documentaries about his father's life. Paul Jr. was always working to preserve his dad's memory and fighting against the blacklisting that had hurt his father's career during the McCarthy era. He wrote several books, including The Undiscovered Paul Robeson, and spent decades organizing events and speeches. Paul Jr. lived a long life compared to many others on this list, making it to age 86 before passing away on April 26, 2014, in New York. He had been dealing with health issues related to his age, and his death was peaceful and expected. His passing marked the end of a direct connection to one of the most important black performers of the 20th century. 12. Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke was one of the smoothest singers ever and had just started getting into acting when his life was cut tragically short. Born in Mississippi in 1931, Sam moved to Chicago as a kid and started singing gospel music with groups like the Soul Stirrers. He switched to pop music in the 1950s and had huge hits like You Send Me, Chain Gang, A Change Is Gonna Come, and Twistin' the Night Away. Sam also appeared in movies and was planning to do more acting work. He was only 33 when he died on December 11, 1964, at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles. The whole situation was really weird and has been debated ever since. Sam had been at a party earlier that night and left with a woman named Elisa Boyer. They went to the motel, but Boyer later said Sam tried to attack her, so she grabbed his clothes and ran to call for help. Sam, wearing just a sports jacket and shoes, went to the motel office looking for Boyer and got into a fight with the manager, Bertha Franklin. Franklin shot Sam 3 times with a .22 caliber pistol, claiming self-defense. The police ruled it justifiable homicide, but Sam's family and many fans never believed the official story. Some people think Sam was set up or that there was more to the story than what came out. The case has inspired books, documentaries, and conspiracy theories for decades because so many details didn't seem to add up. 13. Otis Redding. Otis had this incredibly powerful voice that could make you feel every emotion he was singing about. Born in Georgia in 1941, Otis grew up poor and started singing in church and local talent shows. He recorded songs like Try a Little Tenderness, I've Been Loving You Too Long, and Respect before Aretha Franklin made it famous. Otis also appeared in movies and was getting more interested in acting as his music career took off. He was just 26 when he died on December 10, 1967, in a plane crash in Wisconsin. Otis and his band, the Bar-Kays, were flying from Cleveland to Madison in a twin-engine Beechcraft when the weather got really bad. The pilot tried to land at Truax Field but couldn't see the runway clearly because of the fog and freezing rain. The plane crashed into Lake Monona just a few miles from the airport. Otis and 4 members of his band died in the crash, along with the pilot and another passenger. Only one person survived, Bar-Kays trumpet player Ben Cauley, who was pulled from the icy water. The crash happened just 3 days after Otis had recorded "Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay," which became his biggest hit after his death. The song went to #1 on the charts a few months later, making Otis the first person to have a posthumous #1 hit. 14. Florence Ballard. Florence was one of the founding members of the Supremes, but her story became really sad after she left the famous group. Born in Detroit in 1943, Florence grew up singing and formed a group called the Primettes with Diana Ross and Mary Wilson when they were teenagers. They eventually became the Supremes and had massive hits like "Where Did Our Love Go?", "Baby Love," and "Stop in the Name of Love." Florence had a powerful voice and was originally supposed to be the lead singer, but Motown Records decided Diana Ross should sing lead instead. This caused tension in the group, and Florence started having problems with drinking and missing performances. She was kicked out of the Supremes in 1967 and tried to start a solo career, but it never took off. Florence struggled with money problems and health issues for years after leaving the group. She had to go on welfare to support her 3 daughters and lived in a small apartment in Detroit. Florence died on February 22, 1976, at age 32, from cardiac arrest caused by a blood clot. She had been dealing with high blood pressure and other health problems that were made worse by the stress of her financial situation. Her death was really tragic because she had been so talented and successful with the Supremes, but couldn't make it work as a solo artist. Many people felt like Motown Records had treated her unfairly and didn't give her the support she deserved after all the money she had helped them make. 15. Rick James. Rick was the king of funk music and had this wild, energetic personality that made him perfect for movies and TV appearances. Born James Ambrose Johnson Jr. in Buffalo in 1948, Rick served in the Navy before becoming a musician. He had huge hits in the 1980s like "Super Freak," "Give It to Me Baby," and "Mary Jane." Rick appeared in movies and TV shows, and his song "Super Freak" became even more famous when MC Hammer sampled it for "You Can't Touch This." Rick was known for his crazy lifestyle, wearing elaborate outfits with lots of jewelry and having wild parties. He struggled with cocaine addiction for many years, which affected his health and his career. Rick died on August 6, 2004, at his home in Los Angeles at age 56. He was found dead in his bed by his caretaker, and the medical examiner determined he died from heart failure. The autopsy showed that Rick had several drugs in his system, including cocaine, methamphetamine, and prescription medications. He also had diabetes and other health problems that were made worse by his long history of drug use. Rick's heart couldn't handle all the stress from the drugs and his other medical issues. His death wasn't totally surprising to people who knew him because he had been dealing with addiction and health problems for years. Rick had tried to get clean several times but kept relapsing, which is unfortunately common with addiction. 16. Eazy-E. Eazy-E was one of the pioneers of gangsta rap and helped start one of the most important groups in hip-hop history. Born Eric Lynn Wright in Compton, California in 1964, Eazy grew up in a tough neighborhood and got involved in street life before becoming a rapper. He co-founded NWA with Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, MC Ren, and DJ Yella, and they had controversial hits like Straight Outta Compton and F the Police. Eazy also appeared in movies and music videos, always wearing his signature Jerry curl and sunglasses. He was known for his high-pitched voice and his ability to rap about street life in a way that felt authentic. In early 1995, Eazy started feeling sick and went to the hospital thinking he had asthma. Instead, doctors told him he had HIV, which had progressed to AIDS. This was a huge shock because Eazy had never publicly talked about being at risk for HIV. He died just 1 month after his diagnosis, on March 26, 1995, at age 30. His death was especially sad because HIV treatments were starting to get better around that time, but Eazy didn't know he was infected until it was too late. He released a statement before he died urging people to get tested for HIV and to practice safe sex. 17. Lisa, Left Eye, Lopes. Lisa was the rapper in the hugely successful R&B group TLC and had started doing more acting work before her death. Born in Philadelphia in 1971, Lisa moved to Atlanta as a teenager and joined TLC with Tion T-Boz Watkins and Rozonda Chili Thomas. The group had massive hits like Waterfalls, No Scrubs, and Unpretty, and Lisa was known for her creative rap verses and colorful personality. She also appeared in movies like House Party 3 and was working on solo projects. Lisa was always the most outspoken member of TLC and often got into trouble for saying controversial things or doing wild stunts. She was driving in Honduras on April 25, 2002, when she crashed her rental car and died at age 30. Lisa had been in Honduras working on a documentary about her spiritual journey and recording music with local artists. She was driving a Mitsubishi Montero with 7 other people when she swerved to avoid an oncoming truck. The SUV rolled several times, and Lisa was thrown from the vehicle because she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She died from severe head trauma, while the other passengers survived with minor injuries. Lisa had been driving fast on a winding mountain road, which made the accident worse. Her death was especially shocking because she had seemed to be in a good place in her life and was excited about her new projects. The other members of TLC were devastated and never really performed as a group again after losing their friend and creative partner. 18. Phyllis Hyman. Phyllis had one of the most beautiful voices in R&B and also acted in movies and on Broadway. Born in Philadelphia in 1949, Phyllis started singing professionally in the 1970s and had hits like You Know How to Love Me and Living All Alone. She appeared in the movie School Days by Spike Lee and performed on Broadway in the musical Sophisticated Ladies. Phyllis was known for her tall, elegant appearance and her deep, emotional singing style. Unfortunately, she struggled with depression and bipolar disorder for many years, which made it hard for her to deal with the pressures of the music industry. Phyllis also had problems with alcohol and prescription drugs, which she used to cope with her mental health issues. On June 30, 1995, she was found dead in her New York apartment from an overdose of sleeping pills and alcohol. She was 45 years old and had left several suicide notes explaining her decision. Phyllis had been scheduled to celebrate her 46th birthday that day with a performance, but she couldn't handle the pain anymore. Her death was really tragic because she was such a talented performer who could have had many more years of success. Mental health wasn't talked about as much in the 1990s, especially in the Black community, so Phyllis probably didn't get the help she needed. 19. LaShawn Daniels. LaShawn Daniels was a successful songwriter who also did some acting and helped create hits for many famous artists. Born in New Jersey in 1977, LaShawn started writing songs as a teenager and became one of the most sought-after songwriters in R&B and pop music. He co-wrote huge hits like Say My Name by Destiny's Child, The Boy Is Mine by Brandy and Monica, and If You Had My Love by Jennifer Lopez. LaShawn also appeared in movies and TV shows occasionally, though songwriting was his main focus. He worked with artists like Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, Toni Braxton, and many others, helping create some of the biggest songs of the 1990s and 2000s. LaShawn was driving on September 3, 2019, when he was involved in a car accident in South Carolina. He was 41 years old and was traveling on Interstate 85 when his vehicle crashed. The details of exactly what happened weren't released publicly, but LaShawn died from his injuries at the scene. His death was a huge shock to the music industry because he was still young and actively working on new projects. Many artists posted tributes on social media talking about how talented LaShawn was and how much his songs had meant to their careers. He had been working behind the scenes for so many years that regular fans might not have known his name, but almost everyone had heard songs he had helped write. 20. Minnie Riperton. Minnie had one of the most amazing voices in music history and could sing notes that most people can't even hear. Born in Chicago in 1947, Minnie started singing as a child and could reach a 5-octave range, which is incredibly rare. She's most famous for her hit song, Lovin' You, which showcased her ability to hit super high notes that sounded almost like a bird singing. Minnie also appeared in movies and TV shows and was working on expanding her acting career. She was married to music producer Richard Rudolph and had 2 children, including daughter Maya Rudolph, who became a famous comedian and actress on Saturday Night Live. In 1976, when Minnie was only 29, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. This was devastating news because she was at the peak of her career and still so young. Minnie kept performing and recording music while getting treatment, showing incredible strength and determination. She became a spokesperson for cancer awareness and encouraged other women to get regular checkups. Unfortunately, the cancer spread despite treatment, and Minnie died on July 12, 1979, at age 31. Her death was especially heartbreaking because she left behind 2 young children and had so much more music to share with the world. 21. Donny Hathaway. Donny Hathaway was a singer and songwriter with an incredible voice who could play piano like nobody's business. Born in Chicago in 1945, Donny grew up surrounded by music and started playing piano when he was just 3 years old. He went to Howard University on a music scholarship and became famous for songs like The Ghetto, Where Is the Love, and This Christmas. Donny also did duets with Roberta Flack that became huge hits. He appeared in some movies and was getting more interested in acting alongside his music career. Donny struggled with mental health issues, including depression and schizophrenia, which made it hard for him to handle the pressures of being a famous musician. On January 13, 1979, Donny was staying at the Essex House Hotel in New York City when he fell from his 15th floor room window. He was only 33 years old when he died from the fall. The circumstances around his death have been debated for years, with some people thinking it was suicide because of his mental health struggles, while others believe it might have been an accident. Donny had been dealing with paranoia and other symptoms that made him act unpredictably sometimes. His death was a huge loss because he had such a unique musical talent and was still creating beautiful music. 22. Dolla? Dolla was a young rapper whose real name was Roderick Burton II, and he was just starting to make it big when his life was cut short. Born in Chicago in 1987, Dolla moved to Los Angeles as a teenager to pursue his music and acting dreams. He signed with Akon's record label and was working on his debut album while also appearing in movies and TV shows. Dolla had a distinctive style and was known for his energetic performances and catchy songs. On May 18, 2009, Dolla was at the Beverly Center Mall in Los Angeles with some friends when gunshots rang out in the parking garage. He was only 21 years old when he was shot and killed by someone who apparently knew him. The shooting happened in broad daylight at a busy shopping center, which shocked a lot of people. Police arrested a suspect named Aubrey Berry, who had some kind of dispute with Dolla, but the details of what caused the shooting were never made completely clear. Dolla's death was especially tragic because he was so young and had been working hard to build his career in both music and acting. He had been featured on songs with established artists and was getting ready to release his own material when everything was cut short by this senseless violence.